Hello there, Year 5. I hope you're all well. Obviously, in the last week, I've actually seen a few of you face to face when myself and other staff members are out dropping off work at people's houses. So, hopefully, nearly all of you will have seen somebody from school when they drop that work off, and you'll also have your booklets for your home learning for the next few weeks. So, it should be a bit easier to be answering your questions for your reading now because you've actually got sheets that you can write that down on, so that should make things a lot easier too. So really nice to see some of you and actually get to chat to some of you properly for a while, which was really nice. So we're back to our reading as usual. Last week we read through the chapter when it was the information pages that Eric had left for George, all about black holes. And so you were looking at the pages because there was quite a lot of information to take in our last chapter, all about black holes, and also that separate information double page about the information about a neutron star. So quite a lot of information, quite a lot of kind of non-fiction almost work last week. We're back to more of a narrative story type chapter again this week, and we're going to find out what George is going to do with that information that he found out. So we'll pick that up and read along now. Chapter 27. The next day was the day of the big school science competition. George left home early. He said goodbye to his pig, he kissed his mother, he put Eric's book on black holes into his school bag, and then he scooted out the door, breakfast still in hand. His dad offered to take him to school on the back of his bicycle made for two, but George just yelled, "No thanks, Dad," and he was gone, leaving his parents feeling like a small tornado had just swept through the house. George ran up the road, and when he got to the main junction, he looked back. He looked back to see if either of his parents were waving at him from the front door. And when he saw that they weren't, he turned left at the corner, instead of right, the direction he would have taken to go to school. Now he knew he didn't have much time, so he hurried along as fast as he could. As he ran, thoughts streamed through his head. He thought about Eric, who, by now, would be swallowed up by the great dark menace of the black hole, the strongest force in the universe. He thought about Cosmos and whether he'd be able to find him in the place where he was headed. He thought about Annie, who he would see later at the competition. Would she believe him when he told her that her dad had been tricked by an evil former colleague into taking a journey across outer space, which had plunged him into great danger? Now George understood why Annie told such extraordinary stories. After the wonders of the universe, real life did seem pretty dull. He couldn't imagine a life without Annie, or Cosmos, or Eric now. Or at least he could, but he didn't want to. He had to save Eric. He had to. George didn't know and couldn't imagine why Dr. Reaper wanted to throw Eric into a black hole and make off with his amazing computer. But he could guess that whatever Dr. Reaper was up to, it wasn't for the good of mankind, science, Eric, or anyone else. Whatever Dr. Reaper's aim was, George felt sure it was a horrible one. The other thing that went through George's head as he ran on towards Dr. Reaper's house was the science competition later that day. If he won the competition by giving a great talk about the solar system, then even his dad wouldn't be able to say no to George having the computer in the house. The problem was that the clever plan George had cooked up to try and save Eric from being eaten up by a black hole meant he wouldn't actually be at the competition, so he had no hope of winning. It wasn't easy for George to give up the idea of entering, but he knew he had no choice. If he wanted to get Eric back, there was no other way to do it. George reached 42 Forest Way, and he took a few moments to get his breath back. As he panted quietly, he looked in at the house in front of him. The driveway led through some dilapidated gates to a huge old building with weird-looking turrets sticking out of the roof. George crept up to the house. He stared in through a large window, and through the grimy glass he saw a room full of furniture covered in yellowing sheets and cobwebs hanging from the ceiling. Picking his way through a bed of nettles, he tiptoed to the next set of windows. Now one of the windows was just ajar at the bottom. Looking in, George saw a familiar sight. In the middle of a crazed mess of pipes, cables and narrow glass tubes holding bubbling brightly coloured liquids was Dr. Reaper, with his back to him, standing in front of a computer screen which was glowing with green light. Now, even from behind, George could tell that Dr. Reaper was not at all happy. He watched as his teacher struck the computer keyboard wildly, using all of his fingers at once, as though playing a very difficult piano solo. The window was just open enough for George to hear what he was saying. "See?" yelled Dr. Reaper at the computer screen. "I can keep doing this all day. Eventually I'll find the secret key. You just see if I don't. And when I do, you'll have to let me into the universe. You'll have to." "Negative," replied Cosmos. "You have entered an incorrect command. I cannot process your request." So Dr. Reaper tried some different keys. "Error," said Cosmos. "Error, type 293. Said Dr. Reaper. "I will crack you, Cosmos. I will." And at that moment, his phone rang. He snatched it up. "Yes," he barked into the receiver. "Ah," and he went into a more polite voice. "Hello, you got my message?" And he coughed in a very fake way. I'm not feeling so good today. No, just a bad cold. I think I'll have to take the day off. Such a shame about the competition." He coughed a few more times. "Sorry, mustache, I'm feeling very ropey. Bye." And he slammed the phone down and he turned back to Cosmos. "See, little computer," he said, rubbing his hands. "Now I have all day." "I do not operate for anyone who is not a member of the Order," replied Cosmos, sounding very brave. "Ha ha ha!" Dr. Reaper laughed madly. "So the old Order still exists, does it? Those silly busybodies who think they can save the planet and humanity. Ha ha! The fools!" he went on. "They should save themselves while there is still time. That's what I intend to do. Forget humanity. Humans don't deserve to be saved." He spat on the floor. "Look what they've done so far to this beautiful planet. I'm going to start again somewhere else, with a new life form. Those silly little boys think I'll be taking them with me. But I won't. I'll leave them here to perish like the rest of the human race. I'll be the only one left in the universe, me and my new life form, which will obey my every word. All I need is to get out there into outer space. You, Cosmos, are going to help me." "Negative," replied Cosmos. "I refuse to operate for a non-member of the Order." "I was a member once," claimed Dr. Reaper. "Your membership was cancelled," replied Cosmos firmly. "After you... Yes, said Dr. Reaper quickly. "Let's not talk about that. Don't bring up bad memories now, Cosmos. Surely it's time to forgive and forget." And he spoke in a horrible, syrupy voice. "Negative," said Cosmos, causing Dr. Reaper to rise up in a fury in front of the computer and bring his hands crashing down once more onto the keyboard. "Ouch!" said Cosmos, a few bright sparks flying out from the keyboard. George couldn't bear to watch any longer. As much as he wanted to break in and stop Dr. Reaper from hurting poor Cosmos anymore, he knew it was vital to get him out of the house and away from the great computer as quickly as possible. To do that, George needed to get to school. He ran back until he reached the school gates. Big coaches sat in the road outside, hordes of children wearing different coloured school uniforms climbing out of them. These were the other kids from nearby schools arriving to take part in the science competition. George weaved through the crowd, saying, "Oh, excuse me." He was searching for someone. "George!" He heard his name, and he looked around, but he couldn't see who was shouting at him. Then he spotted her, a tiny figure in a dark blue uniform, jumping up and down and waving at him. He scrambled over to her as quickly as he could. "Annie," he said when he reached her, "I'm so glad to see you. Come on, we haven't got a minute to spare." "What's up?" said Annie, wrinkling her nose. "Is something wrong with your talk?" "Is that your boyfriend?" A much older boy in the same school uniform as Annie interrupted them. "Oh, go away," snapped Annie at the bigger boy, "and say stupid things to someone else." George held his breath in fear, waiting to see what the bigger boy would do, but he just turned away meekly and got lost in the crowd. "Where have you been?" George asked Annie. "I told you," replied Annie, "at Granny's house. Mum dropped me back at the school, so I haven't been home yet." "What's wrong, George? What is it?"
Annie, said George very seriously, I've got something awful to tell you. But he didn't get the chance. The teacher blew a whistle very loudly, forcing everyone to be quiet.
Right, the teacher announced. I want you all to line up in your school groups, ready to go into the Great Hall, where the science competition will begin. You, he pointed at George in his dark green uniform, among a crowd of kids wearing blue, are with the wrong school. Kindly go and find your own group before you confuse people anymore.
Right, meet me just outside the hall, George hissed to Annie.
It's really important, Annie. I need your help. And with that, he left her and he joined his own school group. He started walking towards the hall, looking now for someone, or rather several someones else. When he saw them, Ringo and his group of friends hovering in the corridor, George knew what he had to do. He grabbed the nearest teacher and he started speaking in a very loud voice. Sir, he yelled, Sir! What is it, George? Said the teacher, backing off a little at the unexpected volume. Sir! Shouted George again, making sure that everyone around had stopped what they were doing and was listening to him. I need to change the topic of my talk. I'm not sure that's possible, said the teacher. And do you mind not shouting? But I have to, bellowed George. I've got a new title. Right, what's the title, said the teacher, who was now worried that this boy might have gone completely potty. It's Cosmos, the world's most amazing computer, and how he works. I see, said the teacher, definitely thinking now that George was mad. I'll ask the judging panel what they think. Oh, good. Thank you, sir. George yelled even louder than before. Did you catch the whole title? It's Cosmos, the world's most amazing computer, and how he works. Thank you, George, said the teacher quietly. I'll do my best for you. And as he walked off, sighing to himself deeply, George noticed that Ringo had taken out his mobile phone and he was making a call. All he could do now was wait. George stood by the entrance of the hall, watching the long lines of school children filing past him. He didn't have to wait long before, out of breath and trembling with excitement, Dr. Reaper rushed up to him. George, he exclaimed, smoothing down his hair with one scaly hand. Did you manage to change the topic of your talk, that is? I think so, George told him. I'll check for you, said Dr. Reaper. Don't worry, you go ahead and give the talk on Cosmos and how it works, and I'll make sure it's okay with the judging panel. Good idea for a talk, George, and brilliant. And just then, the head teacher came past. Reaper? He said curiously. I heard you were ill today. Oh, I'm feeling much better, stated Dr. Reaper firmly, and very much looking forward to the competition. Oh, well, that's the spirit, said the head. I'm so glad you're here, Reaper. One of the judges has had to drop out, so you're just the chap to take his place. Oh, no, said Dr. Reaper hurriedly. I'm sure you can find someone much better. Poppycock, said the head. You're just the ticket. Come along, Reaper, you can sit with me. Grimacing, Reaper had no choice but to follow the head teacher and take a seat next to him at the front of the hall. George waited by the door until at last he saw Annie again, coming towards him in a great gaggle of kids in blue uniforms. As she walked past him, he grabbed her sleeve and he pulled her out of the great river of children flowing into the hall. We've got to go, he whispered in her ear. Now! But where? asked Annie. Where have we got to go? Your dad's fallen into a black hole, said George. Follow me, we have to rescue him. And that's the end of the chapter. So a bit of a longer chapter this time. We've had some shorter chapters recently, and then the information from last week. So a much longer bit of the story there, and lots of different things going on. So I'll pop the questions up on the screen as usual anyway in a moment, but obviously you've already got the questions as well. They'll be part of the pack of worksheets that you've already got that have been delivered to your house. So I'll put them up anyway, just so they're there in the video, but you've hopefully all got a copy of them anyway. Okay, so usual thing, have your best go at those questions, and then I will see you again digitally next week, of course, when we'll carry on with the story as it really starts to come to the big sort of dramatic conclusion as we find out all the answers and see the stuff at the end of the story. But until that time then, have another lovely week, stay safe everybody at home obviously, and enjoy having a go at the questions and listening to the story. Alright, bye.